All right, guys. So here we are, Crushing Limits Unleashed podcast. This is episode 11. So thank you guys for tuning in. I have a couple of new guests that go way back with me. So I have Bill DiSarro. He is a coach himself. I've known him for 20 years. So he
Long
is
time.
long time. He's definitely follows the sport, avid bodybuilding fan and a coach himself. He's going to bring a lot of insight as we make some predictions today. And of course, joined by another good friend, Jerod Graff. He is also a coach, follows bodybuilding to a T, and again, very knowledgeable, going to bring a lot to the table today. And of course, Stephanie Santamaria, IFBB Pro. She's also going to have some insight as well. So let's get to it. First off, before we kind of go through each guy, what do you guys think as far as when we get to the Arnold Classic? What are we thinking Arnold is going to do? Is he going to say, F you to the Olympia team and say, raise it to 1 million? Like, what are you guys thinking here?
Well, I'll jump in. I think it's going back and forth. I mean, I think it's everybody's trying to one up each other for the money and who's going to have the most money. So I think it's going to continue. And I know even in the other divisions too, they're looking at upping them too. So I think those are the ones that I'd like to see upped a little bit more, to be perfectly honest. But I think it's going to go back and forth between the Olympia and the Arnold, and just to see who's bigger than the other for money wise.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, Arnold being the second biggest show, he wants to raise the stakes after, I think, a couple of years of maybe downed attendance and stuff like that in Ohio. So I think he's really trying to make a push to get guys back by raising the prize money. That's why you see guys like Derek, um, and some bigger names coming back, like Samson, he's going to do it. So, I mean, very rarely do you ever see the Olympia champion do the Arnold. So I think that they're going to keep going back and forth, like you said, Jared. And I think also keep in mind in the distance, you're going to have Dubai and that whole conglomerate over there. They're throwing a lot of money around too. I think ultimately they're the ones that might be the real threat and the real challenge to the Olympia, um, and Jake Wood and those guys if they don't really pony up the big bucks. And let's face it, we all know they're making the big bucks. So that should be the prize winner. But I do think that Arnold is going to stir the pot like he always does, and he's going to make some noise. So that's what's bringing the big boys to this one this year.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. The talk is mostly nowadays that, who's going to be the first to hit 1 million, for that first place trophy. It'll be interesting to see, but I think we're probably all in agreement that he is going to have a surprise check when he goes on stage, and
Mm.
it probably will be even more than the 500K already being offered.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think with what Bill said too, I wouldn't be surprised if Dubai comes in as the first $1 million one,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest. I mean, I
Mhm.
think they're the ones. And if you look at where bodybuilding is going and the up and comers, you look at some of the people that are competing over there for bodybuilding, especially, they're from over there. And a lot of people are going over there to train, and they throw money around, like Bill said, like it's nothing. So I
Yeah.
think Dubai has the biggest potential to really make the biggest splash and be like, hey, we hit 1 million before everybody else did, and the
Yep.
bodybuilding's coming overseas now.
I feel like every time I turn around, there's another post or uh, another up and coming, Middle Eastern bodybuilder. Some of the Iranians, um, they're coming out of the woodwork, and everyone is freakier than the next. And wherever they're growing these guys over there, there's definitely um, a big home base mothership of these guys over there, and we all know that kind of money that some of them have. So I think that they're going to really push the envelope and bring some of these big boys that are kind of in hiding, so to speak. They're going to push the envelope and bring some of these guys to the forefront real soon.
Well, and I think to jump with that too, Bill. if you look at the people coming from the United States, I was just watching Andrew Jack too, and that's where he's been training is overseas there too in the
Mhm.
Middle East, Dubai. So I think that's the other part too is people are from here from the United States. They're getting paid to come over there. They're not paying for anything. It's room and board free, no distractions, and it kind of goes both ways. I mean, some competitors they flourish out there like that, and then others don't. I mean, Brandon Curry, case in point, went from nowhere
Mm.
to I'm going to say he was Mr. Olympia, but I'm going to say I mean it was his physique transformed. Let's just put it this way: we never thought he went from being third tier to being even in the top 3, 4.
Right.
So
Mhm.
Yeah. Even though we're all not really Curry fans, we comment on it all the time and we say how trash he is and this and that. But the reality is his shape and structure clearly changed a lot, like you said. Another guy that's been over there for the last year took last year off from competing, Regan Grimes. If you've seen him recently, he's just tipped over 300 pounds and he's been training overseas. So
Yeah.
I mean, if he can come in with quite a physique, after taking a whole year off of growing, guys like that could really make a real impact in the top 8.
Yeah, absolutely. And he switched from Milos, you guys know. He's now with Stefan.
Mm-hmm.
So Stefan's army and we
The
all
whole
know
world
that
is.
yeah, we all know that Milos has a reputation. Yeah, he can grow people in the off season, but other than Regan, like when we saw him at the Olympia where that was the best that we had seen, he's not really known for a conditioning guy.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
with the new coach now, with Stefan seeming to be, on the money with most of these guys, we should see a possible best ever from Regan.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'm a fan. I like his structure. I like his demeanor and mentality. So I'm hoping he brings a good one.
side note on Regan, did you guys see the post today with him calling out Nick Walker?
I did not.
I
Missed
didn't
it.
see it.
Yeah, I just read it about probably 30, 45 minutes ago. He was talking because Nick is doing New York Pro.
Mm.
And then the next show is now I'm going to draw a blank. Is it somewhere in California or somewhere like that?
Got the
But he
Detroit
said
Pro
that
too.
Mhm.
well, that's before that though. And
Yeah.
Regan's not doing that one. But he said if Nick doesn't win that show, he's going to come to that show, and he said he's not going to beat him. So, and Regan looks good, and I
Yeah.
think honestly, and we've talked about Nick Walker's physique, it's not as appealing. So if Regan brings it in like he's never done it before, guaranteed he wins.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say that now.
Well, I mean, we say that because, we're not the judges. And we also know how that kind of works sometimes. You think if it's a close battle between Nick and Regan, and we're all going to sit there and go, "Oh, Regan absolutely tore him apart," they're going to be like, next thing you know, Nick edges him out for a win just because he's Nick Walker, which we all know
Yep.
is guys don't deserve that all the time. And I'm not really a Nick fan, but I think his structure is he's freak factor all day, but structure wise, he's terrible.
Yeah, he's got an impressive work ethic and physique in a way, but it's not the most pleasing.
Yeah, it's not a pretty physique, that's for sure. It's freak factor stuff, but I relate it to like Marcus Rule back in the day. He seems that just big everywhere, but nothing was really great.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's going to be a good year for sure. So let's get into the lineup when it comes to the Arnold. You guys have probably seen it. We'll cover them all if you guys don't have them in front of you.
Yep, got it.
But we have Patrick Moore. You guys have probably seen. Everyone's probably seen now. He was just involved in some type of altercation at the gym.
Hmm.
Obviously, we don't know all the details, but I was telling Stephanie the other day. It's regardless, it's not really a good look going into the Arnold Classic.
Yeah, it's a bad look. I mean, Patrick is one of those guys that I feel like he's a cross between obviously open bodybuilder and a classic physique guy, and I've never really honestly seen him improve all that much. Um, year to year, comparing pictures to pictures, and I don't know what he's doing or not doing. I mean, he does have an impressive physique, but I feel like his posing is pretty terrible. I feel like he closes off his front double bicep way too much, as opposed to having a big extended abdominal wall and keeping his chest up nice and high, which would, I think, make him look bigger. But I don't know. There's something just about him that's always been like missing. You see him on, you see him in pics. You're like, oh, maybe he's going to be something this year. Then he shows up, and you're like, ah, same old Patrick. And then you just shove him to the side again.
Yeah.
I think the big thing with Patrick is he jumped on the scene. I want to say 21, 2022 is when he hit the Olympia, and he was one of the 2-3 conditioned people out there.
Mhm.
And I think that's when he hit the mark. So then after that, everybody was like, okay, what is this guy going to do now?
Mhm.
And then after that, he'd never improved. He never added on to it. And I agree 100%. That was always the talk with Patrick Moore is, okay, can he cut down to get to classic? And what has always been said is that he cannot make the weight. I don't know now with the weights going up, I think he can. I would like to see that. I just don't think, I think his physique is nice. It really is. But he needs, I'm going to say probably 20 pounds minimum just to stand with these people. And I think it's kind of like Brandon Curry back in the day, though, too. And Brandon Curry had a great body to him, but he just needed to add a lot of size, too.
Yeah.
But I just don't think Patrick can do it. I don't think he has the motivation and drive to really push himself to go to that next level. So,
yeah, I kind of agree.
What did you think of his package, Stephanie, when we saw him at the Olympia?
So, well, which time? So that first time we saw him at the Olympia and he was like predicted to be like this up and comer, I was super excited about Patrick because I thought he had a very, the X-frame physique. He had a beautiful taper and a very flowing physique. So I was hopeful and I was excited that he was going to really rise, and then it was kind of just nothing happened.
Yeah, it's the same old
It would
Patrick.
be nice to see if he brings it for the Arnold.
It would be nice. I mean, now here we are getting closer to it, and he's
Yeah.
having, fights at his gym parking lot. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure, where his mental state's going to be. I kind of feel like after this controversy, we might just see something come out about him, about, him backing out at some point, from now until then, just because of all the controversy that's going to surround this whole subject. I don't know. I mean, I hope it was a, one and done type of thing where, it's not going to affect his life, but it's yet to be seen. But hopefully if he does show back up, it's, something that we've been waiting for a long time.
I would like to see it. I'd like to see him advance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about another guy. Let's talk about Justin Rodriguez. I know, kind of like what we were saying with Patrick, he's kind of in that camp where he just doesn't seem to improve, and you guys know you never know who's coaching him because he's had so many different coaches. And that really becomes a problem because you don't give enough time for the coach to really learn your body. And by the time they do, you've already switched to a different coach. So you guys may have seen the pictures. I can pull them up if I can find them here. But
Yeah.
the last one that I saw, I mean, he kind of looked like he was pretty off the mark.
Yeah. I think it's standard conversation when we talk about Rodriguez. Unfortunately, after the last 2 to 3 years, he's just not been, he's not been on point. He's always behind. When it comes to it, I mean, the guy does have a crazy physique. He's got a lot of potential there, but it's like, I don't know if he's got some type of inflammation issue or just fat loss resistance or something going on, but he never comes in, the way he needs to come in, or if he can't peak right or whatever it is. I'm not sure, but he just never, fulfills his potential, and He's just one of those guys, I think, at this point, like we said, coaching, jumping to coach. Sims and then not Sims, back to Sims and all this, that never ever works, man. You gotta give it a little bit of time. And he gave it time and then he went back. So I think he's just one of those guys that at this point, as we said, in the prior combo, it's time to maybe just kind of figure out something else to do because he's not going to be back on the Olympia stage. There's too many guys coming up that have just blown him out of the water coming right past him. So I just don't see him making any waves here. I probably, if he finishes other than last, I'd be surprised here in the show.
Yep.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, when he was with AJ, and I think it was New York Pro, it was his last time he really had a good showing. He looked good. I mean, he does look good. He can pull it off, but again, he's a guy now where I don't even put him in the top three tiers. He's a guy that shows up, and he's going to be tied for 16th or dead last, depending on how many people are coming to the pro shows. So again, his name doesn't really carry any weight anymore whatsoever. I mean, nobody's talking about it anymore. I looked this morning, I was like, okay, who is his coach? I mean, that's always the big question with Justin Rodriguez. And again, I think if we look at where he should have stayed, again, I think he should have stayed with AJ Sims. AJ was the only one that really kind of got him to where he needed to. And he looked the best, but he kept jumping back and forth. And now I could see this being his last year. I thought last year was going to be his last. I didn't think he would compete anymore. And his pictures this morning, when I saw him, it looked like he was just starting prep.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, how about I mean, we've all seen the buzz on Carlos Thomas Jr. I mean, the guy's proportions are just ridiculous. Like me and Stephanie were at the Texas Pro 2 years ago. We got to see him live for the first time for his pro debut. I believe he ended up getting third in that show. And I mean, other than Rubiel, Nexzilla, I don't think I've ever seen legs like that. I guess Rami too, but the legs, I mean, the guy's only 5'6", so the proportions are they're just cartoonish.
Yeah.
But you guys probably know too, like he's not, I think there's a reason for it, and it could go two ways, but he's not posting his back.
Yeah. Well,
and that was the talk, today too. Everybody was talking about the front side. Phil Viz was talking about his posing and things like that, because he was working with Kenny Wallach and everything like that. His legs are crazy. Again, I think he's got some of the best wheels out there. And then it looks, when you look at his, that's the shot right there.
yeah.
And to be honest, I mean, for 5 weeks out, Carlos's legs usually are not dialed in. That's the problem with, and he's like, in my opinion, when I was going through the list, I was like, okay, where do I put Carlos Thomas? I mean, he's a guy where he's good enough to be third at best, but he's shown where he could be number 9, to be honest, with his conditioning.
Yeah.
But that's because, again, I still see a lot that needs to pull. But if it comes in, I mean, that proportion right there, those legs just, I honestly think the symmetry of his legs and his body is better than what Rami's legs look like when he was in his prime.
I agree with that. No doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that as we know and we've seen from Carlos, when everyone says shows are won from the back. Well, unfortunately for him, his shows are lost from the back. He's got a very wide back. But his back is as flat as a table. He has no detail. Now, he had no detail, and maybe he's changed that. But he's going to need to in order to compete with this crew of guys that are going to be top 5, top 8. But Jerod, I think you're right though. If he dials it 100%, and some of these other guys are off, he could definitely break a few hearts and creep in a couple of spots just based on his shape if he's peeled, which I'm not sure we've ever seen the best Carlos Thomas that we can see just because he's never been 100%. So, I mean, if he does bring 100, and he's peaked right and everything else, but he could definitely, I think he could break the top five. But I mean, he's not gonna be top three in my opinion. But he could definitely make some waves here and make some noise. If he is absolutely diced and sliced, he could be all right. But his back is going to tell everything when it comes to him because that's definitely he's got the thickness, he's got the width, he just never had any detail. And to go next level, you got to have detail.
And I agree. I think you put him into that five. He's in between that 5 to 9 range.
Right.
And and again, that's when we start going over where we're going to put everybody. That 5 to 9 range is like the biggest question mark for me. Is like I was like, I flip flop guys left and right, and Carlos is one of the guys where he's at that 4-5 mark or he's at that 8-9 mark.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? Like you think about it, right? If he had and we're going to compare him to somebody that's absolutely unstoppable from the back. But this is the guy that you're going to go up against. You're 5'6". Derek Lunsford's 5'6", 5'5". Right? You're going to put yourself in that category. You got incredible legs, and Derek turns around and he is absolutely lights out from the back. And then there's Carlos Thomas, who's absolutely not. So that's what separates number 1, 2, or 3 from number 7, 8, or 9. But rightfully so. If Carlos was diced and sliced and he had detail, he could certainly by rights and on paper anyway, you would think that he could push some of these top 3 or 4 guys if he had some good detail. So hopefully he brings that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the good thing, for Carlos is he's still very young in his career.
Hmm.
So, he's done the one pro show. This is his second pro show. And, we all know when Phil jumped on the scene, yeah, he won his first 2 pro shows, but the constant critique was he's got to bring the back up to match the top Olympians,
Yeah.
and then of course, when he did, it was game over.
All right.
So hopefully we'll see, like you said, we'll see if Carlos, how much he's brought up the width and the detail,
Mm-hmm.
because if he is in condition, he's definitely going to be pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on, we have William Bonac. He's at the tail end of his career, at least from what we've kind of seen. But he's had some good showings recently. I mean, he was pretty good at the Olympia. What do you guys
I
think?
feel
I don't
like
know.
he's always consistent. I don't know. I'm a fan of Bonac. I always have been.
Mm.
So I think coming up, I mean, everybody else looked at him as like a smaller version of Kai. I mean, you can't put much more on William Bonac, or it really takes away some of the taper, the symmetry on him. I will say this: he did switch coaches again, or he has a new coach now. And then seeing his legs, so legs is like the issue with William the last few years. And again, as we get older, that's where the legs go. I mean, if you look at all the pros, the older you get, that's where that's where you see it the most. I will say, looking at pictures of William right now, his legs look actually improved from the last few years. So I think he's going to have a good showing. I think he's a guy that, again, is going to be that could be 4, could be 8. It's right in there because his physique is right where it needs to be this year. And again, Stephen Keys? Keys, I think that's how you pronounce his last name.
Mm-hmm.
His coach, I mean, he's got everybody right now. And
Yeah.
again, I mean, he's really bringing it for Bonac. And I think he's going to have a good showing. Top 5. Yeah. I really think so, this one.
Yeah, it's like Chris said, towards the end of his career here, a couple more years maybe, right? But I know he had a leg injury that downsized the one leg there for a minute. And but no, I agree that I've always been a Bonac fan. I always wanted him to pull it off, more than he did, and I thought he deserved more than he got. He ran into a couple of buzzsaws every now and then, but the guy's impressive, and he is Mr. Consistency, that's for sure. He's got a lot of muscle on a big frame, on a small frame, and he always comes in really, really well. And I hope that he brings good package. And you compare him at this point, X amount of weeks out, compared to Colors Thomas, he's definitely way ahead of that. But and he's in a great place to be where he needs to be in that top five. And I think looking at him now, that like Jerod, like you said, I think he could definitely do it. I think this is. I'm hoping, and I think it's going to be one of his best showings in quite a while. And I think he deserves it. If he comes in dialed, I think they should give him, you know, the spot that he deserves.
Yep. And let's talk about another guy, and maybe you guys know. I haven't seen anything. It's been kind of quiet from Jonathan De La Rosa. I don't know if I really haven't seen anything as far as posts or anything, but so he might be just, keeping quiet until the show.
I've
Yeah,
not seen much.
Go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
No, yeah, go ahead, Jerod. You got it.
No, I was going to say the same thing between John De La Rosa and actually Andrew Jack. Both of those guys have been very quiet um, on their Andrew a little bit more. He's posted a little bit more just with clothes on though. But John De La Rosa, nothing. I actually went out and looked at him just to see because does he have a coach?
So
I couldn't
question.
remember.
last year,
Yeah,
Aceto coached him.
Who
okay,
did?
and I
Mhm.
Aceto did,
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Aceto coached
and
him last year. And when he started
I
making,
couldn't tell this year though.
yeah, I don't know about this year though.
Huh. I've not seen
But
anything from him at all this year. Very quiet. Um, and You know, I don't know. I feel like I like John a lot. Nice guy. Um, I was there, I think, when he turned pro in New York, and I don't know. I just feel like he gets dwarfed a lot. I don't know. Legs are kind of a question mark for me, I think, and but it's weird because like you see him in pictures and you see him. And you're like, I don't know. And then he gets on stage and you're like, damn, he's kind of holding his own with people. So he's one of those like, what if factors, like what if this, what if that. If he's way off, he's, absolutely out of the mix. But if he's nails, he can be a little bit of an upset guy too. But I've not seen anything from him this year yet, or at least
he,
recently. So I don't know where he's going to stand. It's hard to say. If he's peeled, he'd be dangerous.
in the last year and a half, he's kind of I don't want to say resurrected his career, but he's done a lot better. And last year, he was 12th at the Olympia, so he beat some people actually. So bigger guys. I mean, that's not bad at all for a guy that wasn't really doing anything 3 4 years ago. Then he had a good year, and he was doing a lot more shows. So I think his physique is good. But again, he's a guy that's going to be probably your bottom 3 or 4 probably in this lineup for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right. He went through a lot of personal stuff too, and he took some time off, and he tried to kind of. I think he was battling a lot of that, stuff mentally too, when he went through a divorce and all that stuff. So that played havoc on him for a minute. But glad to see him back, pushing hard. And it seems from what I've seen in his posts and stuff that he's kind of like you said, resurrected his career and also gotten his head right, where he's in a happy place and a good environment for him.
Yeah, and it is nice to see, like you guys were saying too, because like he's another guy's too, where he's probably in his early 40s at this point. So it's kind of nice to see, some of the improvements and definitely a guy that can mix it up with some of these guys.
Yeah.
So moving on, we have Sean Clarita. I haven't seen it too much. We obviously saw the one, was it last week? I feel like he posted something or Stefan
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, I saw something last week or at least a couple of days ago.
Yeah,
And maybe you could pull it up, Chris.
yeah,
But I saw him posing. He looked bigger and fuller than he has in quite a while.
yeah, the,
But
yeah, the
it's kind of weird
fullness.
because there, I think that's it on the left there. Yeah.
Yeah, the
But
fullness is just
I mean, he
nuts.
looks like an absolute freak right there. But I mean, it's kind of goes against what he was talking about last year, that he needed to come in smaller and more streamlined. But now he's coming, looks like he's trying to come in bigger and crazier again. But, we are post Matt Jansen era here. with him too. So complete change in gears, complete change in mentality, maybe for away from whatever Jansen was or was not doing. But I mean, he looks absolutely nutty right there for a guy that's, like 4 foot nothing.
Yeah. What do you think of this look, Stephanie, compared to like we obviously saw him
Oh,
downsized quite a bit, from the Olympia when they wanted him to come in, a little more streamlined.
I like the full bubbly cartoony look. And he's gonna bring the condition too. He's always in condition. So
Yeah.
I'd rather see him full and bubbly than flat and
Yeah. What I like about that look that he has there is that he actually, at this point, he has really deep insertions in his delts and arms, which I believe, again, speculation, was he never really had. He always was blurred. He always looked blurry, like his delts would flow into his tries and his tries would flow into his buys, and there was no super separation, so to speak. It always kind of flowed, and that's always an indication of excess insulin, where you just get flowy muscles into another one, and there's no deep separation. I like the look here, where it looks like he's got a lot more separation at 5 weeks out than he may have had it, on some stage shots over the last couple of times he's been on stage. I like the look. He's going to bring size. He will bring conditioning, like Stephanie said. So it'll be an interesting look where he was downsized at the Olympia. But now it looks like he's going to be upsized again. So we'll see.
yeah, I
I think
think that's his weight in the post,
190 in the post.
190.
It's
Yeah, so
big for
this
him.
is, if you guys remember, 2 years ago at the Olympia, he came in at about 178, close to one.
170s. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
I think
this
the
is a
big
pretty
thing.
good look for 190.
I agree.
I think the big thing is just conditioning though, and I didn't think his conditioning was what it needed to be last year. I think the combination. I don't think he's found the true combination of having the real bubbly look that we see right now and being real dialed in like he was 2 years ago, 3 years ago at the Olympia and stuff like that. So I like it. I mean, I like seeing the giant killer out there going against these big guys at
Yeah.
190 pounds, giving up 100 pounds. That's the
Yeah.
biggest thing. He's giving up
Yeah.
100 pounds on most of these guys, but then you got to remember he's less than 5 feet tall too.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you nailed it, Jared, is that he's struggling and has struggled to find the balance between coming in as big as possible because he is smaller in stature and just overall just a smaller human being, and getting that nails conditioning where he can have both be his biggest self and also be absolutely inside out, so that he's super impressive no matter how much he weighs. He's kind of struggled to find that in between.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on, we
Definitely
have,
fun to watch though.
Yeah,
oh
for
yeah,
sure. He's always
always, yeah, he
entertaining.
always brings it,
Yeah.
especially, so we have Brandon Curry, former Mr. Olympia. We've seen a few pictures from him in his camp. He seems to be at least better in condition, I feel like at this point than, in past showings. What do you guys think? I feel like this
I
one's
think I think the big thing for him
yeah.
right now is his mindset where it's at. I know he's switched coaches. He's working with Justin Harris now. I think his legs are better than they've been in the past. That's always been like a big thing for me is like with Curry is his legs just seem to be small. And again, when he compares to other guys, I think he gives it up in the legs. So, but I think now with Justin Harris, I think they're bringing a better package than the last year or so.
That's Olympia, Chris.
That one there.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, you know,
Yeah, this one appears current.
the we always talk about Curry, um, being the worst Mr. Olympia of all time, whatever you want to say, The guy has great shape. When he stands there in the silhouette and he walks out, you're just like, holy crap, who is that? And then you're like, oh, it's Curry. But, and then he continues to just unimpress you from there. But I'm hoping, the one thing he's always lacked, Jerod, you nailed it. The leg separation, leg detail, leg size, glute and hamstring separation. I don't know that I've ever really seen his hammies dug out and separated the way they need to be a top quality. It's hard to say that because he's obviously done very well. He's been a Mr. Olympia. He's been top two, top three, top five. So, what we're seeing versus what they're seeing is maybe not the same. But um, I think, he's coming to the end of his career here too. He's falling. He fell quite a bit last year in the Olympia placings. So this is either going to be a revenge tour for him and come back to make top 4 or 5 here at the Arnold, or he'll just continue to slide down the list where other guys are going to start coming hard and up and blow past him. But it's yet to be seen. I mean, if he comes in and his legs look good, he could hold his own in the top 6. Well, he's another one of those X factors. It's like he could be ninth or he could be fourth or fifth.
And you kind of hit it too, Bill, on that one. I mean, I don't see him any better than 6, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
I think if he gets 6, that means he did something really good.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any way he gets better than 6.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that.
Okay, so yeah, another big guy we were talking about earlier, of course, Andrew Jacked. You guys said I haven't really seen much from him lately as far as pictures. Like he shows him, himself training in the gym, but I don't think we've really seen like a physique update.
Yeah.
It's mostly
They're all
just
pictures of they're all pictures of him in the gym with a long sleeve shirt on and just like the middle picture up on the top. It's
Yeah.
kind of what you see a lot of.
He's keeping it covered up. When
Yeah.
he last year at the Olympia, right, he said, y'all are going to see something that you've never seen before and all this other hype, and then he comes out and he shows up and you're just like, oh, come on, dude. Like you have the potential of Mars over here and you're falling short of all of it. And, if there's one guy that you want to see sliced and diced and just dirty, nasty inside out to stand there with Samson and just have 200-300 pounders go toe to toe. He's the guy. I mean, but he just has missed the mark with being lower body conditioning and especially from the rear. But his potential is insane. I mean, he's the one guy I really, really, really want to see just blow up and find it 100% where it's like he's got the combination. Okay, now Andrew has found it. He's got it. Now let's see what happens. In the top 3 because he could mix it up with any of them.
Yep, I agree 100%. I mean, Bill, we've talked about this for a while. Like we saw a glimpse of it in Texas last year when he won the Texas Pro, and we're like, if he just can come in 15% better, it's game over for everyone.
Yeah, and he came in 15% worse.
Yeah. And it's that one thing, like you said, just where you sigh when you see him because like everyone wants to see this. Like everyone is hoping, even if you're not an Andrew Jack fan, you're just hoping, man, if this guy really brings it 100%, like he's going to be trouble.
He's got the freak factor, plus he's got the aesthetics. He just misses the mark on, all that stuff. Chris, when we're sitting at the Olympia, right, a couple of times, and we're just anxious, ready to see these guys come out, and we're like, "Ooh, here he comes, here he comes!" And then all of a sudden, he comes out, and you're just like, we look at each other and we just shake our heads no. And we're like, it's just a letdown. You're just like, and then you move on because your brain is already like, all right, well, he missed the mark, so.
Yep.
That's all. That's it for him today. So I want him to hit it, man, big time. He's one guy that he's just hard, big, huge, impressive dude. You're like, wow, that guy's an absolute mountain of a man. He just needs to put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
And the sad part is the sad part is we talk about him being let down and all that stuff, and he gets 5th in the Olympia still.
Yeah.
So,
but
that's a crazy.
That
That's
shows you the
crazy part
difference
of that,
between
yeah.
5 and 1 and 2 and 3, right? I mean, that's what a fine line is. It's like any other sport. Baseball player that hits 300 goes to the Hall of Fame. Baseball player that hits 278, you forget about him real quick. So it's an analogy there, but this is a guy that he could be Mr. Olympia for sure.
Yeah.
I think we'll know right when he walks onto the stage and you see his legs. Honestly, that's kind of where I go to is right away with his legs, because his upper body, when he does a front lat spread, you're
Oh.
like, the guy's gonna fly off stage. Literally, just it's one of the most impressive front lat spreads out there for sure. It just goes for days.
Yeah, I think he needs to decide whether he wants freak factor only, or if he wants to be a real, a Arnold champion or Olympia champion, because it seems like he's just going for freak factor the last year or two. He's just got to taper it down just a little bit. We always say coming in at 300 pounds and out of condition is not going to win you. You got to be 288 and shredded inside out, and you're going to win because you're going to just be that much better.
Who's
Yeah,
coaching him right now? Is it Aceto?
I believe Aceto is still his coach.
Yeah.
See, that's another thing. I looked to see on that part, and I was like, is Aceto doing it? But I have not heard anything. And honestly, with Heavy Muscle Radio, I haven't really jumped on Palumbo's that lately. So
Yeah,
I haven't heard who's coaching Andrew Jack really.
me and Stephanie watch every episode of Heavy Muscle Radio.
Yeah.
So yeah, as far as Aceto commenting, he hasn't commented, so I can't say it's confirmed. But yeah, obviously we know last year he was brought in from Aceto.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys think? If his look at the Texas Pro last year, I feel like if he brings that, I don't think Samson can beat that, in my opinion.
Ooh.
I think all day long Samson beats him. All day long.
Yeah.
Not even Andrew Jack, again, he'll give him a run, but it's a run where they'll put him right by each other. And Samson has that bubble. He's got the bubble now, even more than he did at the Olympia, I think, even now, too, looking at pictures. Yeah. So, Andrew, I want to say, I don't want to say it, but I think it's true. I think the door is shut that he won't beat Samson unless Samson is completely off.
Right. Unless Samson's an absolute water buffalo and Andrew is inside out, Texas Pro plus 20%. I don't think he'll beat Samson at all. I agree. Samson right now is, and I'm not the biggest fan, but structurally wise, he's getting more impressive by the day. So I would definitely agree with Jerod that it would have to be a massive swing from one side to the other for Andrew to beat him. What I would like, and I think we all know at this point, after being in bodybuilding and watching so many shows and being on stage, Chris, you and I with Steve Weinberger, moving us around in spots back in New York.
Yep.
Steve is the kind of guy that will take the top 4 guys and put them in every single spot, move them back around, Samson to the middle, Andrew to the middle, Derek to the middle, whoever else to the middle. He'll put Clarita in the middle just to make everybody start talking and thinking and get the hype going. But the bottom line is you could put Andrew in the middle and he's not going to beat Samson unless he is absolutely out of this world.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got to be 100% for sure.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Right. Yep.
Another big man, too. Let's move on to Akeem Williams. I haven't seen a whole lot from him. Maybe I did early on in the prep. How about you guys?
No, he hasn't really posted anything since mid-January.
Okay.
If you
It's
go
been
to
a couple weeks. It's been a couple weeks.
How do you think Akeem is going to fare in this lineup, Stephanie?
That middle one.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like Akeem. He's got a good look. I think well, it's not necessarily weakness because you can't change it, but he's got the higher lat insertions that take away from that 100% flowing physique that a person looks for.
Yeah.
He's got really big muscle bellies, like full muscle bellies, and I like Akeem. I don't know.
I think, like, obviously coming from the powerlifting world, Akeem is a monster of a man. He's huge.
Yeah,
Look at that back. I mean,
yeah,
the density and the thickness of his back is
yeah.
ridiculous. He has got so much muscle. I feel like finally he's gotten to the point where he's got the conditioning factor down and what works for him the best. Because from the side chest shot, Chris, if you have that, you look
Yeah.
at the leg, the quad, the separation and the detail and the hardness on the quad alone, even on the side chest when he's not really even hitting it fully right there, if what I can tell. I mean, he was lined up and laced and hard as a rock when he won the last show. Stephanie nailed it though. His biggest downfall is and I'll just say it, it's the weirdness of his back double bicep. When he pulls back and he hits the back double, it's just a weird pose for him because his lower lats and insertions are so strangely inserted that it's hard for him to get a great back shot that's going to take him to the next level. But the amount of muscle on him is impressive. I mean, he's got the conditioning down now as best as he's probably going to get it. It's just a matter of him improving that, the lat insertion part and the rear double bicep. But he's only got so much to work with genetically. But I think he'll probably, if he comes in the way he did the last show that he won, he'll be in this mix up. I think he'll be 4 to 6, if you ask me.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think
I agree. I agree with the back double too. Like he's a guy too, like we've seen, like with Orville Burke, the high lat insertions, and you guys, we've all heard about it, possible nerve damage. I don't know if it's an age thing. I know he's in his 40s too, so it might be a little bit more difficult if there is nerve damage. He's, maybe can't get the contractions in the lower lats.
Mm.
But all around, yeah, I mean, he's a powerhouse of muscle, no
Yeah,
question.
I think actually he's one that's getting better every year, though. To be honest, I mean,
agreed.
last year he comes in, gets 10th at the Olympia. I mean, Curry was just barely in front of him. So,
Mhm.
and then he was ahead of De La Rosa and things like that. So, I think, I mean, I think his look right now, and I know he hasn't posted anything since January, but I like where he was at. I thought he was probably. It's not always good to be that far ahead compared to everybody else, but he looked like he was ready to go,
It's
not
a
too
great
far
shot
out.
right there.
So.
Mhm.
His
That,
legs look great right now.
mhm.
His arms, he's out from the front. From the front, it's always going to look pretty with Akeem, and the
Yeah.
side shots are going to be right on. And
Hmm.
again, the other thing too with his back used to, again, his conditioning was always bad from the back. It
Yeah.
just his skin just couldn't get tight. But
Yeah.
maybe with age now, he's actually getting a little tighter, and it actually looks good now. But again, I see. I mean, he's going to be right in that probably 5 to 8 range again.
Yeah. I think a key for him is that he's stayed leaner for a longer period of time, and it's allowed his back, thickness of his skin and the little bit of extra fat that he's had on it holding through his back skin has allowed him to become in leaner. So I think for him, he just needed to stay leaner longer in that state of leanness for a longer period of time than he had in the off seasons last time, so that his conditioning could be that much improved when he actually gets on stage.
Yep. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. James Hollingshed. I mean, Jerod and I talk about James, just a stand-up class act guy. I mean, he's really entertaining when it comes to, podcasts, and he really just tells it like it is. But as far as the conditioning, we saw him at the Olympia a couple years ago, and he just was not bringing what everyone thought he was going to bring, right?
Yeah, agreed.
But how do you
I,
guys
I
think
think
he's
with,
going to fare?
I think James is gonna. I like his look compared to his last few years for sure. But again, the problem with him, it's either he tries to get too lean, and then he looks like he should be on the 212 stage, or he gets too big, and there's no definition whatsoever. And that's been his struggle. And he said it multiple times where that's where he struggles. But again, He's got a new coach. His new coach has got him dialed in. I think they were doing. Is this them posing right here? Isn't it, Chris?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is with
With
Stefan.
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
So I think he's got a good look. I just think when you start looking at, obviously the top three are just going to throw him completely off. I mean, they're not coming close to that. I
Yeah.
think he's going to have good comparisons with Curry. I think he'll have good comparisons with Akeem. I think even like with Colorita and Bonac, I mean, they're smaller statue where they might stick out a little bit more, but he's going to be fighting again for that, again, 7 to 9 range. I
Yeah.
just don't think he's going to have enough size in the legs
Right.
to really bring it up. His back is a little bit needs to come up as well too. Good arms, good shoulders, but that's yeah. And
I
he'll
noticed
I think he'll bring conditioning.
I noticed in these pictures all the back shots are blurry or
Hmm.
darkened.
Mm.
They're not
Yeah.
showing his back.
Yeah, I agree, Steph.
And that
And
was a
that's
weak point
usually
too.
either like, oh, something big, something great, or it's usually a sign of there's some catching up to do.
Yeah,
Man, that's
Yep.
99% of the time it's the latter part. It's
correct. Yeah, yeah. I think that he looks a little thinned out here. I think his legs, proportionally wise, I think he's just not. He doesn't have any pop right now. He's going through a transformation. It seems like with the new coach, they might be kind of reprogramming him a little bit to. When he first came on the scene, he had so much potential, and all you heard about was, the shed, the shed. He's going to make waves, and he kind of didn't. And now I think maybe with Stefan, they kind of said, "Hey, we need to go back to the drawing board and kind of re-script this a little bit." Um, so maybe they're kind of rewriting the book a little bit, like that side chest shot there, Chris.
that's
Like,
a bad side chest.
yeah, it's pretty awful. The hamstring is bad. I mean, there's not a lot, honestly, for an Arnold Classic or an Olympia competitor. It's pretty bad. So I hope he brings in a better package, but I feel like he's in the transformation of his physique phase right now, and um, we'll see what happens. But I don't have much hope for him at the Arnold this year. Um, but hey, stranger things have happened. This Stefan's a wizard, so I mean, you never know what they got up their sleeve. But with 5 weeks to go, it's right 5 weeks, right, at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see him doing any damage at this point. I think he's way behind. I think he's downsized, so he'll be battling Justin for the last spot.
Don't
I
you,
agree
don't you, the
100%.
one thing I saw his pictures is like, I wish he would find the tanning bed real quick. Because every competitor that we looked at, it was like, okay, they're a lot darker complexion. So again, I think that's the one thing with James is like, he's as white as a ghost.
No, he is.
So it makes his poses look that much worse. So I mean, you throw Carlos and have his white complexion on there, and you'd be like, whoa, this is not a great
Yeah,
looking physique either,
right.
too. So it brings out the flaws a lot more.
That's true. That's a fair point for sure.
All right, guys. So now we're going to round out the top two. So we're going to talk about Derek Lunsford, a guy with some changes that we've seen. Stephanie, why don't you start us off? What do you
Oh,
think about Lunsford coming into this? Obviously, a former Mr. Olympia, and now we see him doing the Arnold Classic.
I am interested to see with new coaching what differences may come. Because I'm a fan of Honey, so I don't know. I just want to see what's different with a different coach. But obviously, he's got a very impressive physique back out of this world. It's crazy. I like Derek. I think he's a real stand-up guy. Um, I just want to see what's different. I'm just anxious to see with a different coach what he comes to the stage with.
Yeah, I agree, Steph. I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, I think we can all pretty much agree that Hani Rambod is the best of the best, right? I mean, he is
Mhm.
the absolute upper echelon of coaching. I think that the biggest problem with Derek that we have seen in the last couple of years is that we see him like this, posing like this, and you're like, damn, his legs came way up. He looks great. And then we get him on stage, and his legs are faded and cardioed off. They just melt off of him. But obviously, like you said, from the rear, he is the the best caliber bodybuilder from the back that maybe we've ever seen. Um, but this one's going to be interesting to see which direction he goes. Like you said, with the new coach, it's going to be a different look, I'm sure. Now, is it going to be better? Is it going to be worse? That's the X factor that we don't know. I'm sure he's guiding his new coach on what has worked in the past and has not. We're all coaches that have taken on new clients that we obviously have to take their perspective on things first and foremost when we're getting used to their body. So it's going to be interesting to see what he brings. I definitely think he will be inside out peeled. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I just want to see what improvements he made. I am not sure that for a former Mr. Olympia from 2 years ago, that this is a good move for him to diet down again after the Olympia from last year so soon, based on the fact that he slipped 2 positions, right? From first to third. I would have taken time off. But maybe he's just chasing the cash card right now and see that he knows he can be potentially, maybe if Samson's off, he can take first place back and get a trophy here and redeem himself a little bit and then set up the stage for the Olympia for another 1, 2, 3 battle with Hottie. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Derek. But I mean, obviously, I'm rooting for the best Derek possible. I think he's a great guy, super good fan base and everything else. But legs are going to be a problem from the front. The sweep has always been the problem, I think.
Yeah.
So Derek on this one, and Bill, you were knocking it out of the park. 1 second, buddy. Okay. So here's what's going to happen with this one. 2 things. It's either he wins and he sets himself up for the Olympia.
Mm.
He loses to Samson, the door is shut for the Olympia.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just saying that now. There's no coming back from it after this one. And I think I would have done what Bill said too. I mean, honestly, I think what Hottie did too is we thought Hottie might do this show as well. Hottie's like, you know what? I got second. I need room to improve. Because again, playing catch up to Samson right now, again, you're going against a guy that's 300 pounds. And when you look at Lunsford and you look at Hottie, I mean, Hottie isn't going to get to 300 pounds.
Right.
And so again, you gotta add in the right places. You got to come in exactly dialed in. And I don't think this is going to help Lunsford whatsoever. So from the back, again, we'll say it. All of us will say it. Beautiful from the back. Probably if you want to walk around, other than Chris Bumstead walking around, I would like to look like Derek Lunsford walking around. I mean, he's got a great look all around. And from the back, it's one of the best, easily one of the best of all time. But when you start looking at him hitting the mark last year, it showed he didn't hit his mark. I mean, he was off. And again, he's trying to play the size game, but then the conditioning game just does not follow suit. And again, I don't think he really, I mean, if I was him, I don't think I need to put really much size on, to be honest. I need to come dialed in, turn around, and say, now what?
Right.
And I think, and from the front poses, he's not lacking really in any of the poses, to be perfectly honest. And I think with Samson, Samson doesn't always hit his conditioning. Let's just be honest.
Fact. Yep.
So when you walk into the show, it's gonna be a coin flip. And if I'm Derek Lunsford, I'll be like, you know what? I'm gonna come in sliced. I know what I'm bringing.
Yeah.
Samson's always gonna be the wild card.
Yeah. Samson's the most inconsistent out of all of them, right? So I think that's a great point. I want Derek to hold on to his legs more than he has been able to. I think that that's kind of been a factor where his legs just came in and you're like, damn, what happened to his legs? I think that's a common question that, you see in a lot of comment posts and discussions amongst guys. They're just like, damn, he
Bill, you were
was,
there, weren't you? You were there
yeah.
last. You saw
Uh,
his legs too.
last year I missed, unfortunately,
Oh, you
but
did.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, but I mean, yeah, it's always been the thing, I follow it super close and you look at pics and you're like 4 weeks out, his legs were full blown. And then on stage, you're like, what the hell happened? So I
Mhm.
think they just melt off him at the end. I don't know, cardioed out or whatever it is, but he's got to hold on to some more leg mass. If he does that, I think, yeah, you're right. I think you're right, though. It's a shut door if he loses, it's an open door if he wins. So you never know because Steve Weinberger loves controversy. So if Samson's off a little bit, man, and that's going to put people in the seats too, dude. That'll say a lot of pay-per-views. Live streams will be off the charts if that happens.
Yeah, you guys pretty much nailed it. I agree 100% with everything you guys said. I personally, I would like to see Derek win this one. I think there's still a lot left in the tank as far as improvements. We know he's obviously really, really young in his career, and all of us here on the pod, we're all conditioning people. So I don't feel like Samson should have won the Olympia in that, lack of condition.
Mm.
So I'm always a conditioning guy. I think if Derek comes in, I think, like you said, Bill, he will be 100% in condition. It's just, when we saw him come on the scene strong when he guest posed at Pittsburgh Pro, and we're like, this is Olympia. This is Mr. Olympia material.
Yeah.
So, and when we saw the legs like that, like they are now, 5, 6 weeks out, that's what he needs to bring to the stage to secure this win. And if he doesn't, like you guys said, it's probably over, as far as
And,
regaining the title.
Yeah.
and let's remember this too. And I think this was what Stephanie said right from the get go is the coach. Again, I think the highly of Chris Aceto. I think Hani is probably. I would probably put him. You could probably put him one. Okay. And then after that, you almost have to look at Chris Aceto as maybe probably the number two. And again, some people would flip flop back and forth on that. But I think when you start looking at it, Chris Aceto is going to be the make or break for this one.
Mm.
I don't know. Again, going with a new coach, your first show, you hitting a home run, I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those times where you have to learn the body. And again, this is not one you want to learn the body because, again, it's a lot of momentum swing. If you miss the mark, you're already going into Olympia. You lost to him the Olympia before. You lost to him at the Arnold.
Yeah.
Judges already seen that.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, I mean, if I was Chris Aceto, I'd be like, hey, you know what? Let's figure each other out. Let's get it dialed in for the Olympia, and let's hit the home run there.
Yeah.
So I think this is a huge. I don't want to say long shot, but I will say this: I don't think Lunsford is. I don't think he beats Samson, and I think he doesn't beat Samson even with Hani as his coach this time. Just saying that too.
I agree with that statement. I think that this is a definite wild card. What I foresee in my little crystal ball after the Arnold, I see Aceto going online and making a post that says, we fell short of the mark, this and that. I feel like he's going to be making a whole lot of excuses for something. Not that I'm not an
Kind of like
Aceto
Ramon.
fan, but I just feel like my prediction, my premonition in my head is that something. I don't think he's going to beat Samson. I think you're 100% right. I think Aceto's going to either whine about it or make excuses about it, or he's always in some type of controversy too, where Hani Rambod, you never find him in the mix up with anybody. He's just, I think like Aceto kind of just stirs the pot with guys, Sean Ray, whoever it is, but not that he's a bad coach by any stretch of the imagination. He's an amazing coach, but I feel like he's going to come up with some excuses after this Lunsford um, second place finish behind Samson.
All right, so now we're just down to Samson. What do you guys think? I feel like most of you guys,
Put the pictures up, Chris. That's all you got. You just got to put the pictures up. That's enough.
yeah. All
He's
right, let's take
obviously
a
the
look.
odds-on favorite, Mr. Olympia. Odds-on favorite. He's ahead of where anyone thought that he would be. Maybe at this point, they were looking for a fall from grace from him, but it doesn't look like at this point that anyone's going to get that. He looks pretty statuesque right there for sure.
Hmm.
Granted, that's a pretty epic shot with great shadowing and stuff like that, so we have to
Hmm.
take that into consideration. That's not going to translate to the stage, but I think he is in the best place that he's ever been for a competition 5 weeks out.
And you
Yep.
got to remember, this guy is traveling, and they were just talking about him. I was listening to a podcast last week about him, and the guy is traveling, going around, meet and greets all the time, and he is dialed in. And I think the thing that we look at is his wife is his coach.
Hmm.
His wife is the one that's doing all the stuff behind the scenes, making all the meals, getting him ready, everything to a point, to a T. So
Let this
again,
be a
he's dialed
lesson to
in.
you guys. I'm just kidding.
What's that?
I said, let this be a lesson to you guys. Just listen to
Oh,
your
damn,
wives.
Steph. All right. Yeah, no, no doubt. I know I do.
No. I mean, it's the truth though. I mean, I think he's just locked and loaded right now. He's on a next level right now.
Mhm.
Again, we've always talked about him being off and everything like that. I think we know the coaches that he had before just weren't on top of it. And I'm not sure his wife does it 100% because I know they talk about. I'm gonna screw this up now. Is it JP? Who's the guy over in the UK that he always talks about?
I know who you're
Uh
talking. I know who you're referring to.
dang. He was I believe he's pro too. He's a pro too, and James Hollingshead always talks about him too. And so I know there's other people there that talk to him as well too. So I think again his structure is
It's
perfect
good.
right now. I think his symmetry is amazing. It's bubbly. The conditioning is actually where it needs to be. Um, and I hate doing this, comparing back in the day to like Ronnie and stuff like that. Again, his physique is the width and everything like that is comparable to Ronnie's. He'll never have the biceps. That's what I always say about Samson. His weakness is his biceps, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
Very, there is like, I don't want to say zero peak because again, I think all of us would want to walk around with his arms anyways, but they are middle to average compared to the pros out there.
Yeah.
That's the
Agree there.
only thing that I look at where it's lacking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think,
Agree.
we all have seen it. I don't think any of us are really, the biggest Samson fans out there, but you can't deny that he is actually improving with, it seems every few months we've seen
Right.
the back double. Like it's a lot more bubbly now. There's a lot more definition. You can see the glutes popping in at, 6, 7, 8 weeks out. So there's no question that he mentally is on the right track, and he is definitely improving. And we know if he improves, significantly, then he is going to shut the door on all these guys.
Yeah. So my take on his depth and his physique and the separation that he's acquiring now and the improvements that he's making, I referenced it earlier with Clarita and insulin, and I think that a lot of people talk about Milos and his use of Slan, right? And when he was with Milos, he was full and round, right? But he didn't have the depth and the separation that he's gaining now. Maybe hypothetically, his separation from Milos has pulled some Slin out, a different protocol, maybe not as much, maybe whatever. I don't know, but it's kind of logical when you put the timeline together to say that when he was with Milos, he looked like this. He's not with Milos anymore. He looks like this. Maybe he's made some big changes to some protocols, drug protocols, stuff like that. He's added some things in. He's removed some other things, and that, as well as anybody, Chris, can completely change your physique in a short period of time. So that's speculation on my part, but it looks to be working. Whatever he's doing looks to be, you know, going clearly in the right direction to be pretty unbeatable here for a minute.
Chris, if you go on his Instagram, he's got a 6 week out video. If you go down, so there, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even look that good at the Olympia last year, if you ask me.
Right.
Especially on Friday night. Friday night for sure.
Yeah.
Saturday night he looked way better.
Yep.
Yeah, the Olympia, because I mean, we're always there. I think Chris had Lunsford winning the first night.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Lunsford winning, and then of
I had
course.
Hottie. Well, no, Hottie was off the first night, but by Saturday I had Hottie.
Yeah.
Yep. And then Hottie the second night.
That side chest right there, the hammies are they're in more than they've ever been in.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, take that into consideration with 6 weeks to go from that video.
Yeah.
That's definitely the best Samson that we've seen, I think.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, and we're talking about like ambassadors and stuff like that for the sport. And again, when you look at every Mr. Olympia for like the last, I mean, I'm gonna even go back to Phil Heath too. I mean, I think Phil Heath was not a great ambassador when he wasn't going around. He was just training, right? Hottie wasn't an ambassador whatsoever. Derek Lunsford wasn't an ambassador. Curry, I don't even think he's a Mr. Olympia in my books, but he wasn't an ambassador either. So I think at the end of the day, Samson's already going around doing that. He's going to be an ambassador for the sport.
Yeah.
Nobody is going to knock him off unless he's off, to be perfectly honest. His physique is going to carry him on. Again, I could see him winning the next 3 to 5 Olympias without an issue, barring any injuries, things like that.
Right.
I don't think anybody that's coming up is ready to dethrone him right now. And I think he's got the personality too that people like. He's a likable person. You listen to him talk. I mean, he's just a genuine person, down to earth person. There's not many of those top tier bodybuilders out there that are like him.
Yeah.
And then when you hear that his wife is his coach, I mean, what else kind of story do you want? I mean, he's beating Aceto. She's beating Hani. So, I mean, that we can kind of put it in perspective. I mean, that's enough story right then and there, but.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Pretty
like
cool.
he's an extremely likable person, like you said, Jerod. If you have listened to him, the guy is so humble, especially for being a Mr. Olympia, the number 1 spot. He's definitely a down to earth individual.
Yeah.
Compare him to Derek Lunsford. It's night and day difference. Like you can just see, you can hear their personalities. You're like, okay, these two are on different levels here.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the size difference between Samson and Andrew? Because I know they're both a little taller than the other boys.
Honestly, they're both the same, I believe.
They're
Isn't it,
both
Chris?
real close. They're
Like
real
5'11", 6 foot, 6'1", right in there.
Yeah,
So-
300, 290. They're both huge, big boys.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
hypothetically, in years to come, could Andrew be a person if he gets it together?
Yeah.
Legs.
Legs
That's all.
Yeah.
Legs
he can be. He can be.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing like Quentin Beastwood.
Mhm.
Like Quentin, he's got the size too. It's just that again, when you look at Samson where he's at, those two are just, not putting it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all know as well as anybody that there's a formula to all this, and it takes some guys 1-2 years to figure out their formula. Takes other guys 5-10 years to figure out their formula, and then it's too late. You miss an opportunity where another guy capitalizes on an opportunity. He figures it out more quickly than you do, and you miss it. Perfect example, right? Like Sadiq Kadsevic in Classic. He went from men's physique to classic physique, and he just missed his timing was way off, and he got blown away by other guys. He tried to come back in and he couldn't do it. He couldn't figure out what was working for him or not. And if you can figure out what works for you quickly, you'll rise. If you can't figure that out quickly, you're going to sink really quickly. And that's a, Andrew is one that could, if he figures it out, he could rise up and battle Samson. Samson figured it out pretty quickly, really, if you think about it. He's got it dialed in the last 3 years for the most
Yeah.
part, and risen. So, guy like that with his structure, figuring out what works for him the best, here he is. He's going to be unbeatable for a while.
And with Andrew too, the other thing you got to look at too is I think he's been overseas for a while now, and so
Yeah.
I don't think he has anything other than himself. I think to take care of. To be honest, I don't think he has distractions. So again, when you look at most of the other people, other than Brandon Curry, when he went overseas, he had a family and left him back in the States.
Yeah.
Not many,
Right.
not many people can be 24. And again, when we say 24/7 bodybuilder, that's what Andrew Jack can do
Yeah.
because he doesn't have the distraction. He doesn't have the family life, or he's working his other jobs too.
Yeah. That's where it comes into discipline. It's like, how disciplined are you? How focused are you? All that stuff, like day in, day out, like you said, 24 hours a day. Um, it's got to be there. If it's not there, the other guy's gonna put that work in. Like Kobe Bryant always said, he's like, I practice 3 times a day. If you practice 2 times a day, that's 1/3 of the time I'm practicing more than you are.
Mhm.
So if you're not putting
Yeah.
in that work 100% of the time, you're going to fall short. And that's what I think Andrew needs to do is step it up.
Yep. All right. So let's get into our final predictions as we wrap this up. Now, of course, it's not necessarily predicting if all the guys were 100%. It's more of just what do you guys think it's gonna, how do you think it's gonna end up when, we're watching the finals? So, I'll start us off. I think, like we just, talked about Samson. I do think that he is the man to beat right now. So I do have Samson in first place. I have Lunsford in second. I'm really hoping for Andrew, so I put Andrew in my third place spot. You guys might be thrown off for this, but I feel like with the conditioning where it is, I think just, I don't know, it's kind of a wild card, but I do have Curry in fourth. I don't think they're going to put him out of the top six. I might be wrong. So I have Curry in fourth. And rounding out the top five, I have Sean Clarita in fifth place.
Yeah.
Well, you're getting voted off of this one. I mean, you put Curry at 4. I mean, you can have them all again next week on this when you change your predictions. So,
Well, that's not how I would put it. That's how I think it's going to go down. All right.
your
What's yours,
favorite
Jerod?
Mr. Olympia.
Where are we
You
going?
want
Me?
Let's go,
Yep,
Stephanie.
Steph's next.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Steph, go ahead.
I agree. Samson is person to beat, followed by Lunsford. I'm also going to be hopeful with Andrew Jacked, but I think it's between Andrew and Clarita for the third and fourth.
Okay.
And then I want Bonac in fifth.
Interesting. All right.
I'm a Bonac fan. I really love his look and his consistency. So
Well, is that how you think it's going to go, or is that what you want to happen? It's
I
two
don't
different things.
know. I don't think that it will. I'm really hopeful with Bonac. I
Sure.
wish they would reward him more.
I agree with that.
I think they've given out some rewards to people that I wish
Undeservingly. Yeah.
wouldn't give them to. I think he's
Yeah.
more deserving of being placed higher and being recognized more than
Yeah.
some others that we've talked about.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Fair.
Fair enough. Good job.
All right. What do you
All
think,
right,
Bill?
boys.
Yeah, I think the 1-2 show is Samson and Derek. I think that's a given. Now, like a lot of other shows, 3, 4, 5, it's like a ping pong ball. You could bounce it around and it can go any way. But what I see happening here, um, I don't think that Clarita is going to overcome the overall just size of Andrew. Like Steve Weinberger always says, you got to remember, it's a bodybuilding show. So the amount of muscle on stage is going to overtake Clarita, even though he might be peeled and diced and sliced. Just the sheer size of Andrew, I think, is going to overtake Sean. I got Samson, I got Derek, I got Andrew, and then I will put Clarita in there at 4. Um, so after that, honestly, God, man, I'm gonna go on a limb here, and I'm gonna say Akeem might be 5 if he's diced.
Okay.
But it definitely could be Bonac. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning. I think that they're gonna Curry may be improved, but I just don't see any room for him here in the top 5. I just think he's going to get squeezed out by other guys that are just too good, and he's going to miss the mark on his rear double and stuff like that. So I think he'll get pushed out of the top 5. He might be 6 or 7. I'm interested to see Carlos Thomas. He's my wild card in this whole one. So that's where I stand on all of it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's good. All right, Jerod, why don't you round us off here?
Well, we'll give you what's going to happen actually. So this time, okay. So again, when I did these again, the top 3 was a slam dunk. It was pretty easy. I think Samson, Lunsford, Andrew Jacked is 1, 2, 3, and I don't see that changing whatsoever. I'm going to go Bonac 4. I really like his look. I like where he's at right now. Seen updates, listened to his coach a little bit talk about William in podcasts too. Don't always listen to what coaches say about their clients about how good they look. Come on now. We all know they're just trying to pump us up and stuff. But I think Bonac is going to be improved. I think he's proven it before at these Arnolds. He's always been consistent, and his legs will be up. This is where it's tough. And so I'm between Thomas and Clarita. Again, if I had to bet the house on it, and I'd go with Clarita just because I know what I'm going to get with him on 5. But again, I have to watch out for Thomas. I mean, the hype is with Thomas right now, and he's got the wow factor. I mean, he's a guy when he steps on stage, if he brings that conditioning, people are going to be like, what is on the stage? Kind of like when Rami came on the stage, when Andrew Jack does a front lat spread, when you see Derek from the back. I mean, he's going to be looked at in that top 3 or 4 easily. But I think at the end of the day, I mean, as of right now, I'm going to have to stick with Clarita because he's more consistent. And then after that, again, watch out for Akeem Williams. I'll say that too. Akeem Williams is going to be one that could slip into number 5. I mean, where he's at, Curry keeps sliding. Clarita could miss the mark a little bit. Thomas might not bring it. He could be in that 5 to 4, even 4, even to slip in front of Bonac too. So Akeem Williams is a sleeper. I think don't sleep on him by any means. It could be good to see him, but I'll go with Clarita at 5 on this one.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
I think that was great.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
Yeah, well, great episode. That'll round us out. Make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel, like it, comment. We want to hear what you guys' predictions are. And of course, we will definitely see you next time.